Right, now without any further ado, I am going to introduce Julia. Now, many of you don't need a lot of introduction for Julia because she's been around a long time. In fact, I was looking back, the first time Julia came to a conference was 2008, which was a really long time ago. So, because the conference has been running for 17 years, which is a really long time. We started in 2003. And so anyway, but Julia and her husband, Michael, they're based here in Auckland. They go to their local church. They're really passionate about education and mental wellness. And I know that you're going to be amazing today as we just unpack some of that. So I'm going to ask Julia to come on up and share. She's going to have us laughing, crying, and everything in between. So welcome, Julia, and thank you.
Thank you, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko puki tāpawa te maunga, ko te awa o te awa no tamaki makaura ahau. Ko Michael, tōku whai ipo, ko Bella, taku tamahine, ko Jessie, taku tama, ko Julia, tōku ingoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I bring you greetings from Massey, just down the road. What's up? I'm right in my local hood here, so I feel like I'm very much at home. You know, life is unexpected, right? Yep. Unexpected. It's so cool. Thank you so much, Ruth, for having me back. 2008. It was a long time ago, and a lot has happened in those 12 years. And I'm just having a little reflection moment there. You know, things happen to us all. The older I get, the more I realise that we cannot predict the outcome of any given year, especially this one, right? We're using 2020, it's like, oh, they're going to pull a 2020 on us. You know, it's become one of those words. But the other day, I wrote off my daughter's car. Now, that's not the normal order of the universe. Your daughter's supposed to write off your car, right? Has anyone's daughter written off their car? Okay, your son, you know, some annoying teenager. Well, I took my daughter's car out onto the road, out onto Donbuck Road, and I ran it into the back of a parked truck. Now, I don't have any particular reason or excuse, so I'm just going to park that part of the story right there if you're part of the park. But I took it down to the panel beaters and I said, you know, can you fix it? He said, yeah, no worries. And I said, can I have a loan car? He looked a little suspicious at first, but he said, yeah, sure, no problem. And he gave me a loan car. Now, when he gave me the car, he gave me some important information. Now, first of all, he said, now you need to understand that this car, instead of having a handbrake, it has a foot brake. Oh. Now, that's good to know, right? Yeah. But then he did this thing that men have a little bit of a habit of doing. He began to, what we call mansplain. Yes. You know, ladies? You know, they tell you stuff you really don't need to know. He's like, rah, 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 rah. And I'm more of a big picture kind of a girl. I'm sort of, you know, so he's talking and I'm not listening, you know. Anyway, I drove away and I pulled up to the first intersection in Massey there, and it was on a bit of a hill. And I stopped, and at this point, my conscious brain and my subconscious brain began to have a kōrero, a little bit of a conversation. You know, because so much of what we think and feel and understand of what's going on is happening in our brain long before it gets to our mouth. Long before it gets to our conscious thought, it's all going on. All those wonderful experiences, those memories, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the hard stuff, the easy stuff, the fun stuff, all those things are built up in our brain. And so a lot is going on up here long before anything comes out here. So my conscious brain said, oh, foot brake, foot brake. The man said foot brake. So I put on the foot brake. I was like, yes. Feeling very proud of myself. But then I thought, well, you know, my subconscious brain began to say something. My subconscious brain began to say, now normally at this point, your left hand would have something to do. Now someone in all their wisdom had designed this car so that where the handbrake would normally be was the handle that makes the seat lie down. I know. Clearly not designed by a woman, right? So I stop. I look at the girl next to me, I smile smugly. I reach down, I lift the handle, I disappear. She's looking a bit panicky. I'm going to assume she thought I'd been raptured, because I'm just so spiritual. But you know, these things happen to us all. I was brought up in a really a beautiful home, and a lot of wonderful privilege in my world. A lot of the things that I interpreted over my life as the blessing of God, I've worked out later have been a little bit, more good luck than good management, and a lot of white privilege. And a lot of the things that I've had as the benefits in my world have not been due to my great choice making or, all these wonderful things. They're just the way it is for me. And I really felt that if I made all the right decisions, I would end up with all the right results. And while I believe that partially to be true, because of course, as we heard this morning, we are in many ways a product of the choices we make. You don't have to go long into life to realise that not everything makes sense. Not everything adds up. Sometimes the most beautiful, well-behaved, spiritual, wonderful people doing all the right things have some awful things happen to them. And it doesn't necessarily make sense. I'm still looking for the scripture that says, yea, verily, it's all going to be sweet as. If you find it, let me know. It's probably in Numbers somewhere, because let's face it. Nobody's ever read it, but it might be in there somewhere, but it's not. What we are not promised is that life is going to be easy. What we are promised is that we'll never be left or forsaken. That God will walk with us through the storms. Amen? So today what I want to do is share a little bit of my journey, a number of years ago, and it's been really interesting reflecting on this session, because I feel like I've sort of in some ways documented my life. I remember 12 years ago I was married to my first husband, and I have my current husband at the back there. No, I'm just kidding. I introduced him as my current husband just to keep him on his toes. But I was not expecting my life to roll out the way it has turned out. And I bet that every woman in this room could tell you a story of what they thought was going to happen and what ended up happening. The tension of the life you thought you were going to have and the one you've got. The body you thought you were going to have and the one you've got. The career you thought, the children, all the things you thought you were going to have and what you are dealing with today. And sometimes those things can be really unexpected. But I want to tell you today, ladies, they can be totally different to what you thought they were going to be, but they can be beautiful in their own unique way. There's something beautiful about giving up a dream and going, you know what, I'm just going to trust that whatever comes my way, it's going to be made together in beautiful ways. For me, a number of years ago, 8 years ago, my husband, I'd been married 17 years, and I had my neck minute year. You familiar with neck minute? Everything was going really well, neck minute. Just all turned to custard. I'd been married 17 years, I had 2 beautiful children, wonderful ministry, wonderful home, my dream home out in the country, and life was going well. I was feeling very, very smug. I thought if we could just continue like this for about 50 years, go see Jesus at the end, we're good. Neck minute. My husband very sort of unexpectedly left me, and I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but the flow-on effect of things changing that are unexpected can be so damaging. They damage our hope, our trust, our belief that, we just get stuck sometimes in these moments. And going through that neck minute year was a deeply humbling experience. And if you could imagine a stress meter in my world, it was just going up and up and up and up. And as I began to deal with stress, and stress began to turn into anxiety and spirals of anxiety, and heartbreak turned into worry, and some of the normal things began to compound, and I began to realise that I wasn't just dealing with a rough day anymore. I was dealing with something more. My health had taken a hit. And worry turned to anxiety, turned to clinical anxiety, spirals of thought, panic attacks, and clinical depression. Now I was doing all the right things, still praying all the right prayers, still, But unfortunately my health had been damaged. And I began to realise that I was unprepared for what I was going through. Now I'm going to be honest with you ladies, this has been a deeply humbling experience. I like to say my life is like a long series of getting knocked off my high horse and getting back on progressively smaller horses. And right now, I'm saddling up a chihuahua. It's true. My youth group friends are running mega churches and doing all these incredible things, and I'm dealing with a blended family, just all the things that happen, and it's kind of like, okay, I don't know what your chihuahua is, I don't know what your neck minute is, but every single one of us have fallen off our high horse at some point. And all the spiritual stuff in the world comes to the rubber meets the road. Life meet reality. And what this has done is put me on a trajectory of finding out what is going on in my brain, what is happening in my body during those times. And I deal with depression and anxiety in my world. I don't talk about fighting it, battling it, winning with it, casting it out. I talk about dealing with it and managing it. Because for me, every breath you take is a mental wellness issue. If you're smiling, it's a mental wellness issue. It's quite a nice one, right? But we're going to learn a little bit today about the wonder, the beauty of our brain and how we can help to work on that. So what I want to do is I'll start by singing a song. This is a bit of an old classic country song. During the gap in time between realising I was dealing with clinical depression and all the tools in the toolboxes kicking in, we have a bit of a dip. You know when you get a headache and then you need to do some stuff, but it still hurts for a while, right? What would you do? What do you do if you've got a headache? Who can give me some tips?
Coffee. Drink some water.
Drink some water. Someone said coffee and then change it to water?
No.
I know they're friends. Coffee and water, I love it. A lot of balance right here in the room. Coffee. Yeah, maybe a coffee, maybe some water. What else could we do with a headache? Darkened room. Go for a walk. Paracetamol. Some rest. Oh, wonderful ideas, they're great. But it does take a little bit of time for that to kick in. So during that dip in time when I realised that depression was becoming big in my world and all the therapies and all the wonderful things that we're going to talk about in a minute kicked in, I had a really difficult dip in there. And so what I did is I took this old song, One Day at a Time, and I added my own verses because I kind of like to insert myself into the story of other great songwriters, especially when they're really good songs. I played once, I had this really random rest home. First of all, one lady fell asleep for half the gig, so that was exciting, and snored quite loudly during one of my songs. But then I also sang my version of One Day at a Time, and at the end of it, another lovely elderly lady said what she thought was quietly to the elderly lady next to her, "Well, that was a very unusual rendition, wasn't it?" Don't play in rest homes, yeah? Your self-esteem takes a hammering, okay? Anyway, but I like to insert myself into these songs because they actually speak to me. And one of the lines says, "I've walked for weeks without seeing the sun, but I'm confident tides will be turning." Sometimes we don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to turn out. We don't even know what to ask for. Sometimes we go to pray and we're like, I don't even know. Just be. Just be. You know, so in that moment, the beauty of the song, it doesn't say 1 year at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. It just says one day. We wake up in the morning and all that is required of us is to make it through the next however many hours before you can reasonably go back to bed. Might be 3, might be 18, I don't know. So I just want to encourage you with that. So I'll jump up onto my guitar there. If I had known all my life would require, I would have given up before I started. And if I had seen all the mountains to climb, I would be frightened and I'd be faint-hearted. As I But you have promised me strength for the journey. And I've walked for weeks without seeing the sun, but I am confident tides will be turning. Just enough courage to take on the day and be grateful for what I can see. Just enough hope to find beauty around, and your grace that's sufficient for me. One day at a time, sweet Jesus, is all I'm asking from you. Just give me the strength to do everything you want me to. Oh, yesterday is gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Thank you. Now, as Ruth mentioned, I do have some CDs down the bottom there. A little bit of housekeeping. Feel free. I'm going to pop my iPad there with my bank account details. If you want to grab one, just take a photo of that. Pay online, no worries. Someone says to me, "Have you counted them?" Do I look like the sort of person who counts things? No. I trust you. And only Jesus will know if you don't pay. So, you know, that's cool. Just putting it out there, yeah. So I've got some CDs there. I've got Beautiful Survivor, my first album, It Is Well, that collection of mine and my grandma's favourite hymns. And then my newest album is called Girl on the Kitchen Floor. And I want to share a little bit about my journey with my mental wellness and then finish with that song at the end. I've actually been involved in the Music Awards a number of times, and I received an award. I've been a presenter, I've been a judge, and a recipient. And for my first album, I received Gospel Album of the Year, and I got my award from Helen Clark. She said, "Congratulations!" Which was exciting and frightening at the same time. So, my first moment. All right, let's talk about our health. Let's talk about our mental health. I've got a couple of stats up here from the Mental Health Foundation in New Zealand. Firstly, that 1 in 2 New Zealanders will meet the criteria for a mental health diagnosis in their lifetime. They won't necessarily get it, but half of us could be in a situation where we could be diagnosed with a mental health condition in our lifetime. However, 49% of churches have rarely or never mentioned mental health. I started talking about this a few years ago, and the first person I ever heard mention it was me. Basically, I was dealing with it, and someone asked me to speak, so I was like, well, I might as well talk about what's going on in my world. And so I did, and the reception was just incredible. Because people are like, wow, why are we not talking about this part of ourselves, which is so important, as we begin to integrate into these things. You know, in the Christian world, we've so often disintegrated. We've split ourselves off into these little partitions. It's time to integrate and to understand that, as someone was saying before, I think this beautiful lady here saying, you know, we're not just a spirit on a stick. You know, we are all this incredible being, and each part of us flows in and attribute, you know, there's a lot going on in there. So I've learned a lot about this, and I'd love to talk about it. Now, we use a wonderful health model called Te Whare Tapawhā. Is anyone familiar with this model? Wonderful. The hands are getting more and more, babe. Michael and I love this. Every time we talk about this, it's an incredible model because it opens the door for some great conversations, right? What it says is that, you know, it's just the health model. Mason Jury came up with this, but using the analogy of the house, that each one of us is made up of more than one part. You know, there's lots of different ways of looking at that, but this is one way. Talking about taha whānau, the wall of our whare or our house, that is to do with relationships and family. If that wall is not strong, our health will not be great. If you live in a situation where somebody is bullying you, breaking you down, throwing rocks at your relational wall, subtly undermining the way you see yourself, your health is not going to be great. If you've got someone in your world throwing rocks at your wall, making holes, the air is going to get in, and you're going to be vulnerable to those things. The people around you have a huge bearing on how you feel about your day-to-day. I can see some heads nodding. Yeah. Sometimes we've got to have some brave conversations with toxic people, or even not conversations, just actually allowing them to not be speaking into your world. It's important. Secondly, we've got down the front here, tā tinana, we've got our physical body. You know, I understand the concept. Sometimes people, I'm not a body, I'm a spirit, and I'm a spirit man, you know. And I understand the concept, like I get it. I've been in church for 49 years, I understand how this works. But if God designed us to be a spirit floating around the atmosphere, we would. But we do have a body. People who tell me that they're just a spirit man, I say, stub your toe and come back to me. It really hurts how you see your way. If you've ever been in chronic pain, all you need to do is get a cold to realise that, like, actually this is affecting everything. It's affecting my moods, my reactions, my feelings are all related. So we do need to care for our bodies, yeah? Okay, we've also got taha hinengaro, our mental and emotional health, and this is something that's coming to light. What is going on, you know, in our past. We talked this morning about trauma and dealing with those things, and actually the fact that we are a product of all that has happened. And you know, our past is not all bad stuff. I've got some amazing memories that have created the responses and the things that are within me. They just simply are the things that are there. Some things need to be addressed and healed and helped. Some things we just live with them and they're great. But it's important to have that. And then, of course, we've got taha wairua, our spiritual wall. The understanding that there's more to us than what we see. And that spiritual side, which is so important. Now, often in the church setting, we have built a very, very high spiritual wall. And often, I've got to say, neglected some of the other parts of who we are. Now, I'm not here to snipe. I'm not from the outside throwing arrows and pointing fingers at the church. I am right in the middle of it saying we could do this better. Okay, so please don't take this as a criticism. But one wall does not make a house. We all probably know somebody who's got this huge spiritual wall, terrible relationships, awful mental health, and a hot mess of a body. You know, but sometimes they've neglected some of those things. And I like this feeling of walking around your whare. How's it going? How's that going? How's that going? How's that going? And then you just start again. How's that going? You know, maintenance, dealing with those parts of us. Now, there's always, you know, sometimes in church, and I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here, but I'm going to say sometimes we pray for things that we could do ourselves. Too soon? No. Oh, Lord, make me fit. Oh, if only you could make a way that I could get fit. Spirit of fitness all over me. Break the fat. You know, or I could go for a walk. This is this integration. God gave you common sense. He gave you a brain to make good decisions. And it's really important that we walk around and we use all of these things to help us with our health. Now, our overall sort of rule of thumb is 3 things. First of all, that mental wellness issues are reasonable. They make a lot of sense. Our reactions and our responses, our emotions, our feelings are often just purely rational rational reactions to things that are going on in our world. Your brain has one job, to keep you alive. And it will do anything to keep you alive. If it gets frightened and scared, if it starts to go into fight or flight mode, if your central nervous system begins to fire up, you will react in a way simply to keep you alive and to keep those you love alive. If you see your kid running on the road, you will do anything, right, to save their life. You're not going to be like, oh, excuse me, sorry to, you know, ask you to just slow down your car there, Ruth, for a minute, but my baby's just about to run on the road, you know, you're just like, I'm going to save that child. When we are feeling under attack, when we're feeling stressed and pressured, our bodies react in certain ways. We don't need to be scared of our mental health. Often people come to me with these big stories of things that have happened and they're like, oh no, and I'm feeling really anxious. And I'm like, yeah. Your brain's telling you some important stuff. God wired you with some signals. Listen. Listen to your body. Don't just ignore it. Pray away the cray-cray. This is not happening. It is happening. Let's deal with it. I like to say to people, it makes sense to me. One of the most powerful things when people say, it makes sense to me that you're dealing with what you're dealing with. Doesn't mean you're stuck here forever, but it does make a lot of sense to me. It's a really powerful thing. So first of all, reasonable. Secondly, universal. We're all on a wellness spectrum. Yeah, it changes. Sometimes it changes in the course of a lifetime, a year, a day, 5 minutes. You know, and there's always someone who's like, oh, I don't need to hear this stuff. I'm really well. Well, you can always get weller. Because you can tell a weller woman. By the way, she wears her hair wreath. I knew you would come through for me. And of course, in the wonderful words of Rachel Hunter, it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. Some of the young ones are looking at me like, ask your mother. All right. I just want to share a psalm that's been so helpful to me. This is written by, manageable. Thirdly, manageable. So many tools in the toolbox. Great news. Where you are today, you're not stuck there. Like I said, I deal with and I manage depression. Some days I wake up and my mental health issues are huge and I have to get every tool out of the toolbox. Some days I wake up and it's almost unnoticeable and life just goes on. But that's okay. That is okay. Because some days my brain can cope with things better than others. Doesn't make me any less spiritual. Doesn't make me any more spiritual. Just makes me human. All right, so this wonderful psalm written by a creative, you know, I'd live with a musician or something. Have a special group for them. Yeah, Michael. You know, because they're all a little bit up and down and all over the place. The Bible is full of emotions and wonderful emotion responses. Laughter, tears, we love them. But he said, unless the Lord had given me help, I would soon have dwelt in the silence of death. Very dramatic, eh? When I said my foot is slipping, your love, O Lord, supported me. And today I just want to pull out a couple of things and share with you some pieces of language that I feel are going to be really, really helpful. Because when we have the language around our mental health, in the good times, it's easy to grab for it in the tough times. You know, when we're under pressure, we will grab for language. We might grab for not very nice language. We might grab for angry language or language that can hurt and upset. You know, we talk about bad language. You know, we immediately think, oh, swearing. Sure. But there's a lot of other things that can be used as weapons, right? Telling someone they're stupid, idiot. Talking to someone like that. Talking to yourself like that. Ain't going to help at all. So I want to give you some language that you can grab hold of in times when you need it. So first of all, this talks about the silence of death. Now, we need to speak up. We need to learn to speak out, right? Getting stuck in the silence of death here. Now, I was brought up very British. My mother, very hardcore Barbara, post-war. My father would just say, just show them your British passport, you know. Keep calm and carry on. It was all just very, very much like that. I said to my mum, can we have a spa pool? I really want a spa pool. Everyone else has got a spa pool. That means one person I know has a spa pool, by the way. Have you got teenagers, right? Yeah. She goes, I'll give you a spa pool. She put me in the bath. In my togs. With an egg beater. Yeah. Not really the same, is it? No. Yeah. Some of the younger ones are looking at me a bit freaked out. We asked them, we thought she wasn't trying to kill me, it wasn't the lecture. It was just one of those old, you know. In those days, who remembers those ones? Yeah. Because we used to have things called hands. And they did stuff called work. Yeah. So you've heard of the saying, keep calm and carry on. Yeah. Great for the Blitz of London when the bombs are dropping and the Germans are going overhead. And, you know, sorry if there's any Germans here today. I have forgiven you. My father, not so much. Yeah. But you know, it was good for that time, but not good for your mental health in 2020 at all. So I've come up with a new one. Here's your first piece of language. Are you ready? Make a big scene! And carry on. Alright? It is okay. In a controlled and agreed environment, we agree to the terms of how we're going to do this, the terms of engagement, and we say, I'm about to make a big scene, but don't worry, because my intention is to carry on. This is not make a big scene and then leave you. Make a big scene and slander you to all my friends. Make a big scene and slap you. Make a big scene and abandon my post as part of your family. This is just make a big scene and carry on. Now, what happens is, ladies, often in life we tend to be volcanoes instead of geysers. We just stuff it all down. Yep. Now, also, let's add to this, we're ladies. And we're nice. And we're Christian. So we don't say no. Because we need to love one another. We need to forgive. And we need to say yes. Yes, I'd love to be on that roster. Yes, I would love to create 4,000 meals for the ladies in the church. Yes, I'd love to say yes. I'm just stuffing it down. Yes, I can do. Oh, I'm just going to do that and serve. And cleanliness is next to godliness, and I need to make sure this is right. And I need to get my body together. And we just stuff it down, and we stuff it down, and stuff it down, and one day, it's all going to blow. Now, you might not explode all over those around you. You may explode on yourself. But somewhere, all those yeses, that maybe some of them should have been no's or maybes or get back to me. And we begin to damage and harm us. Ladies, don't be a volcano. Volcanoes are unpredictable, they're destructive, and they destroy everything in their path. Be a geyser. What's a geyser? They go off once a day. People stand around, they've figured out how far is safe and put a little fence. They go, oh, look at her go! They give you a little pucky. People pay money to see that stuff. It is okay. This whole feeling, my mother never complained about parenting, so I thought it was real easy. I'm breaking the cycle. I complain constantly. No, this whole pretending everything's together. For some of you, like more mature ladies, like fine wines, like pretending that it's all been easy for you is not helpful to us. Being honest about how tough it's been is actually what we need to hear. Because this veneer of everything being perfect and beautiful and put together and so. I just look at that and go, that's not me. I can't be that lady. You know, God made fish all different colours and I just happen to be like a rainbow. I can't quite fit myself into that mould. And I love the fact that as women, we've come out of this thing where we all have to be cookie cutter, American scrapbookers. Sorry, apologies if you're, and that's not, if you're an American scrapbooker, that's not to you, but that's cool for you. It's just not my jam. I'm just not that. God made us different. Let's embrace that. You don't have to be the same as everybody else. So you can let it out and you can say no. And you can just let that thing, but lose some of that stuff. But what's important is you remember to carry on. Because it's agreed terms. If the people around you think every time you make a big scene that you're about to leave them, you need to rethink the way you're doing things. If they know that you're going to give them a strong, assertive point of view, but they are safe in that environment, you still love them, you sandwich it. I love you, I love you. You like that? I love you, guys, I love you. That's how it works. And then they are safe. So they know that you can have an opinion, and so can they. All right, so make a big scene and carry on. Secondly, we need to learn to identify our weakness at the wobbly point. Oh my gosh, what is the wobbly point? The wobbly point is all the signals your body is giving you that something is not quite right. And this is where we can over-spiritualize. If you are under too much stress and pressure, all the prayer in the world is not going to clear your timetable. You are going to have to do that for yourself. Now, sure, you might pray for God's strength to be brave enough to do that, Does that make sense? I don't want to be critical, but there are some things that are up to you. You might need to actually go, I need more time, I need some space, I actually need to do some practical things to protect yourself. I was brought up with the song, Jesus first and yourself last and others in between. Who was that? Everybody? Yeah? Guess what? You're one of the others. You are there in amongst them. You have a right to an opinion. It took me $500 of therapy to find out that I was allowed to have an opinion. I'd like you to have it for free. You're one of the others and you have an opinion. So it's really important. Now, as Kiwis, we don't tend to ask good questions. We tend to say, we have these sort of conversations. You ready? Hi, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. That's it. Who's had that conversation already this morning? We get all paranoid, right? We're like, oh, you know. It's okay. You can have that conversation. But we need to dig a little deeper. We need to begin to actually go further down into that and to say, actually, we need to ask some more questions, some more emotional questions, some questions that get us out of the logical part of our brain into the emotional part of the brain. How did that make you feel? What was your response to that? I see that you're under a lot of pressure. Maybe we could make an appointment and hang out and do something together to help us out in that process. So it's really important. Now, I've been a school teacher in West Auckland for many years. I only do a tiny bit now, but over the years it's been very entertaining. Lots of children called Metallica and stuff. I wish I was joking. But I've been asked some wonderful questions. I was wearing a ring one day with a big piece of glass about that big. One of the kids goes, "Oh, Miss, is that a real diamond?" Yes. I said, "If that was a real diamond, do you think it'd be here?" I've been asked, "What colour is this blue pen?" How long is the 40-hour famine? That was from a parent. Thank you, Henderson and his media. And finally I was wearing a t-shirt. It was kind of a huffer shirt. It had a map of New Zealand on it. It was quite subtle, grey on grey, tone on tone. One of the kids goes, "Oh, Miss, I think you spilled coffee on your shirt." I said, "Is it in the shape of New Zealand?" "Oh, yeah." So when they say there's no such thing as a dumb question, it's not true. But the point is you turned up. You're there. You're with them. Somehow you have made a connection. Now I know there's always someone thinking, "Oh, but Julie, you can't talk about anxiety and stuff because the Bible says be anxious for nothing." I know. The Bible also says that by Jesus' stripes we are healed. There's a number of ladies wearing glasses. I'm supposed to have my glasses on too, so I'm with you, I'm not attacking you. But we live in the tension between these two realities. Could God heal you from your bad eyesight? Has God healed you up until this point? You want to guess why? No, I'm kidding. Should you take your glasses off and drive home? Please don't. We live in the tension between the two. I believe that, marriage was for life. It's what I signed up for, and I found myself divorced and remarried. A different world. And trust me, I know what people think. And I live in the tension between those two realities. It's very easy to be on your high horse until it happens to you, or one of your kids, or someone you love and understand. I believe that, God can be in control of my brain and my mind can be renewed in Christ, but I do deal with mental wellness issues. My brain sometimes doesn't, in that physical way, doesn't do what I want it to do. And I live in the tension between those two realities. And it's okay. My mum was the world's most well-behaved Christian woman. If you want to give a list of things that you think I'm doing wrong, she didn't do any of them. And she spent the last 15 years of her life with Parkinson's. And passed away so unwell. And I live in the tension between those two realities. I was at a conference once and a young man came to me and goes, "Oh, if your mum had had more faith, she wouldn't have had that." He's in the hospital now. And I should be in jail. No, I'm kidding. But haven't we heard the subtle messages The sideways looks. What's she doing wrong? What's she up to? I broke my foot one year. Nobody ever looked at me weird. Nobody ever tried to cast out the demon of the broken foot. Or suggest I go for a run. All they said was sit down, take your rest, take your medication, let it heal. My foot broke. Sometimes my brain breaks. And I need to do all the same sort of things. Now I'm going to really quickly whip through. We start a little bit late. Am I allowed to go just a little bit? Can I? Awesome. 10 minutes ago, that'd be great. You know, talking about the wobbly point, you know, a friend of mine noticed the wobbly point, and his name is Lee. He's British, so he's rude, you know, like my dad. If I turn up to my dad's house looking less than well groomed, he goes, "Oh, given up the fight, have we?" He goes, "Oh, I liked when you had long hair and pigtails." I said, "Oh, I liked when you had hair." So we're kind of even. Anyway, I sat down with my friend Lee, and he noticed that the normal Julia was not really there. He looked me in the eye and he said, "You're not well. You need to go to the doctor." Now, I'm not used to this kind of conversation. I'm a Kiwi. We say things like, "Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Good," right? You know? So I was like, "Excuse me." Yeah, and he said one of the bravest statements anyone had ever said to me. He goes, "No one's going out on my watch." I've said to him since then, "I'm so glad that you're so rude." That he was brave enough to acknowledge that there was something bigger than just a broken heart, or just a rough day, or just the normal grief that was going on. My body had begun to say, "I am getting too much information. I am overstimulated. Your central nervous system is in fight or flight mode for way too long. Your adrenal fatigue is getting high. I'm going to stop you right there. Because clearly you're not going to look after yourself. I'm going to have to do something for you." In the same way that when my foot got onto enough of an angle that it couldn't handle anymore, it turned over and cracked, and nobody did funny things, my brain also began to switch off like that, and that was okay, and it was a sign that I needed to do something about it. So what did I do? So very quickly, I'm going to whip through a bunch of things. Now, all of the things that helped me started with the letter F. I was going to call my message Julia Grace and the F words, but I've been told it's not appropriate. So it's not called that. So don't write that down. But anyway, they just happen to be called that. But first of all, faith. You know, my faith has been hugely a part of my journey. And I think one of the biggest things is it's been the ability to put a stake in the ground. And I love this feeling that I wear an anchor around my neck to remind me that sometimes the ship on the top of the ocean is in a storm. Sometimes it's going left or right or port or starboard or whatever. Sometimes it's flipped over, lost a, bit of paint. Needs a bit of sanding and grout. But if you come down and follow to the bottom of that chain, you will find it attached to a rock. And that rock is stronger than I am. I do not understand. Many of my theologies and all these great ideas have gone out the window with the realities that I face. I'm no longer superstitious with this, if you do this, you'll get that. If you give this, you're going to get that, and all this stuff. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to love God and love people. And if it fits into those categories, I'm down with it. I'm going to continue to live in that way. And that's been hugely calming and centering for me in my faith. Secondly, whānau. I know what you're saying. But whānau are friends and family we choose. Can I be honest with you guys? Sometimes your blood relatives are not the right people to talk to about your mental health. A lot of our personality, a lot of what's going on, or even our experiences can be very similar. We may have inherited some of those traits. If you're highly anxious, it's highly likely that so is your mum. She may have demonstrated that to you, or you might have got some of that from in a hereditary way. We don't want to destabilise the relationships around us. I'll give you an example. If I'm not really happy with motherhood, I don't sit my daughter down and be like, you know what? I'm not really enjoying this motherhood thing. It's just going to make her panic. It's going to really freak her out, right? It's going to destabilise the relationship. I find another mother and I sit her down and I say, I'm not really enjoying this motherhood thing. And she's like, same. And we make a big scene.
And
And then we carry on. And that's okay, because it's not panicking. Be wise with who you share with. Counsellors and therapists are incredible. They can help to untangle what is going on in your head. They can help to deal with those traumas, or even just some of those expectations, some of those early things that have woven together to make us respond in certain ways to things. So that'd be great, because they don't care. I mean, they care, but they don't care. You know what I mean? They're going to go home at night to their own people. They are skilled in the art of helping you make a big scene and helping you carry on. All right, next thing. Fullness. The definition of depression is a dip. Now, if you imagine a dip in a beach ball, if you try and suck that dip from the outside, it's just going to appear somewhere else in the ball. There's no way you can get rid of it by sucking it from the outside. The only way to get rid of that dip in the ball is to inflate it from the inside out. These are the things that make you come alive. These are what I call the things that make you go, Things that make you go, What did the little you love to do? And I know there's a workshop on that this afternoon. I love that. The things that just make you go, yeah, I love that. The hobbies, the stuff, the things you might want to revisit, the things that make you come alive, and they will all be different. All right, next, we've got fitness. Wah wah. I hate to break it to you, but fitness is so and just inextricably linked with our well-being and how we feel. Building some muscle, burning off some stress hormones. You know, standing in the... Sometimes I wonder, are we praying for good health while we're sitting in the KFC queue? You know, God's just like, just use the things I gave you, those legs, and get out there and do something. A lot of science, a lot of research around the combination of well-being and fit. You will feel better automatically if you move your body, because it's not there to be looked at. It's actually there to be functional. And if there's one way to stop you worrying about how it looks, is to make it do something. Because you'll look terrible anyway. And very quickly, the focus will become, what am I doing? All right? Next one, food. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to give you a lecture. But there is a huge link between our food and our mood. These are some of the things that we have absolutely ignored. You know, one of the hardest places to eat really good, healthy, whole food? In church. I stopped eating sugar for a while, and it was almost impossible. It was so hard. We're like, oh, it's really healthy, and they were chowing down all the... Now, I'm not saying you can't eat normally and you can't enjoy the food you eat. All I'm saying is there's a link. Look it up. All right. Pharmaceuticals. I know it's a PH. I am a teacher. I'm so grateful for the medical professionals who have helped me through... I had heart surgery. The other night I had an anaphylactic reaction to a salad. There goes the food idea, doesn't it? Hey, right. But I've had some health issues in my life. And I'm grateful for the medical professionals that have given me the right care and the right medicine. I'm grateful for the medical professionals who have helped me give me good care and medicine around my mental health. Antidepressants are not a silver bullet. They don't necessarily fix everything. But what they can do is take you to the top of the list and allow you to start to work your way through. I spoke to a friend who took 5 years to recover from depression to a point where their well-being was a little bit more normal, and I wasn't prepared to wait that long. I didn't want to look my daughter in the eye and say, you know, I could have been well 5 years ago if I had taken some really good medication, but I didn't feel like it. I wanted to get well really quick. And so what I did was I took some antidepressants, and it really, really helped. And what it does is it allows you to go back to the top without anxiety and work your way through the other stuff. I went from being skinny and miserable to fat and happy, but that's okay. If you need to go to the doctor, go. This is not some conspiracy. There's not American people trying to kill you. Get off your weird websites. They're great people trying to help you out. All right. Forward focus. Give yourself something to look forward to. Book something in your diary. Give yourself something that you can reach for that can become an absolute anchor for you. And finally,
Thankfulness.
I'm really reaching here, I know. This afternoon, I'm going to wrap it up, but this afternoon I'm going to do a session on the power of thankfulness, the power of gratitude, and not just from a nicey point of view. You may have realised I'm not very nicey. I'm just honest. And actually there's a lot of power in gratitude, and I love the way those things come together. So I'm just going to wrap this up with our last piece of information and the third piece of language. So we've had make a big scene and carry on. We've had identify your weakness at the wobbly point. And finally, 1 degree of change. Some of you are thinking, oh, well, if I wasn't depressed before, I am now, but, you know, way too much information. Don't panic. It's about the small changes. If I stood here and I walked for 500 miles in this direction, I'd end up, I don't know, out in the middle of the ocean somewhere. If I turn 1 degree to the right, even though my movement is almost imperceptible at the beginning, I would end up in a very different destination. The small changes you make today can make huge changes in your well-being. We're going to continue talking a little bit about this in the session. I'm going to have some notes to give you and a little bit of nice practical homework. But I just want to encourage you. You know, a wise man once said, if you're walking through a fire, don't stop. It's not a good place for a picnic. Maybe a barbecue. Yeah, maybe a barbecue, yeah. Ladies, it is 1 step at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 degree at a time. Thanks.
That was just great. Thank you so much, Julia. Fantastic. Okay.